In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you a tool that helps me prioritize what I should be focusing on when it comes to product development and marketing. So let's get into it. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Connor. I'm the founder of the Unicorn Factory, a freelancer marketplace in Canada and in New Zealand. So usually what I do on this channel is I make a whole bunch of videos, tutorials, and breakdowns on how you can use no-code tools to build your own directory or marketplace. In today's video though, I have decided to show you a tool that is technically not a no-code tool. It is a tool that I use a lot though on the Unicorn Factory and my personal website, and the tool is Google Analytics. So for those of you who do not know what Google Analytics is, it's a tool that allows you to see how different people use your website, and I personally use it to figure out what features I should prioritize and what marketing efforts I should double down on. So the reason why it's incredibly useful to use a tool like Google Analytics is because it really gives you a good idea of what part of your business is struggling most. So oftentimes what I find is that when you are not getting the traction that you are looking for, a lot of times people jump to the product as a way to solve that problem. But oftentimes the problem can be anywhere. It can be anywhere in either getting enough users to your website or converting people at different stages of the user journey. And if you don't use a tool like Google Analytics, at best you're guessing what the issue could be, and that can oftentimes lead to your product either being bloated with features that no one needs, or sometimes it just doesn't fix the problem at all. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what you can do with Google Analytics, and then I'm going to show you how you can implement the actual tool using Google Tag Manager, and I'll also show you how to set up event tracking inside of Google Tag Manager so that you can start seeing how your users are using your website, and hopefully that can then lead to you making better decisions when it comes to your marketing and your product development. But before we get into it, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if this is the kind of stuff that you're interested in, then please like this video. So I usually don't make a lot of videos on marketing tools or marketing specific things, but if people are interested, I am happy to make a few tutorials around that as well. So just let me know by smashing like on this video and even commenting down below what specifically you would like to see in future marketing videos. But without further ado, let's just dive into it. So this is the Google Analytics account of the Unicorn Factory New Zealand. So there are a few different things that we can see. So the first thing is this is the home page, and it kind of gives you like a high level overview of kind of how many people have visited your website, how many sessions have been created, what your bounce rate is, and how long on average people are staying on your website. You also, to the right of it, have a view that shows you how many people are on your website right now. And you can even dive into specifics to see where exactly they are located and what pages they are on. So the way it works is whenever someone actually comes to a page, what Google Analytics does is it will pick up that someone has just come to your website, and it will tell you specifically what page they're on, where they are, and they'll also start tracking all sorts of different things like how far someone scrolls into the page, what page they visit, and a whole bunch of things like that. They also allow you to dive into quite specific things. For example, how much time people are spending on different pages on your website, how many conversions happen. So for example, if you're tracking on the Unicorn Factory how many people actually make an inquiry, how well are people converting, and it really gives you a good idea of how people are using your website, and more importantly, if people are using the website the way that you intended them to. So for me, Google Analytics serves two main purposes. First of all is to figure out where exactly all of my traffic is coming from. So I use this page here to see what is generating most traffic. So you can see there's organic search, which is when someone finds you through Google. Then you have paid search, referrals, social media work. And basically from there, what you can see is where most of your users come from. And that is incredibly powerful when you're trying to figure out what marketing efforts you should prioritize. And then the next main thing is to see how people behave on your website. So you have a whole bunch of different tools that allow you to see what their user flow is. So what happens once they visit your website? What pages do they navigate to next? And essentially, do they go to the pages that you want them to go to? Now, the reason why it's good to use a tool like this is because at times you can find yourself in a situation where, for example, you don't get as many conversions as you usually do, and instead of worrying about it being something wrong with your features, you can actually just jump in here and see if it's due to less people visiting your website or if it indeed actually has something to do with your product. So there were times where I used this tool to see that a reason why something wasn't working on my website was not because we were not getting enough traffic, but because there was a bug on the website and that led to higher than usual bounce rates. So all of those types of things can be used to really figure out what you should be focusing on in the product side of things. But another thing that is incredibly powerful about using Google Analytics is it really gives you a good idea of, first of all, where your traffic comes from, which should give you a good indicator of what type of marketing things you should prioritize. But more importantly, it also tells you what marketing channels generate most conversions. So that if, for example, you're not getting a lot of conversions from your social media marketing, you can use those insights to decide whether you want to keep working on your social media marketing or if you should shift your focus to other channels like SEO or paid search. So Google Analytics is a free to use tool. It's incredibly useful, but there are also heaps of alternatives out there. So I'll leave a few links in the description down below so that you can go and do your own research in terms of what analytics tool you might want to use on your site. So there are two main ways that you can set up Google Analytics for your website. One way is to just sign up, create an account, and then use the code that they give you and just copy and paste it into your Webflow project or whatever other website builder you're using. Or you can do it the way that I do, and that is to use a tool called Google Tag Manager that allows you to install scripts on your website and then just copy and paste the Google Analytics code into there. So now I'm going to take you through the process of setting up a GA4, which is a newer version of Google Analytics that has recently been released on your Webflow site. So before you get started, you're going to have to create an account inside of Google Tag Manager and inside of Google Analytics. Once you've jumped into Google Analytics, you'll need to create a view for your website. So I've just set up one called Unicorn Factory Test just for the sake of this example. But once you've gone through the process of getting it all set up, it will take you to this page here. And on this page, it will give you a bit of a rundown on how you can install Google Tag Manager for your website. So once it's all set up properly inside of Google Analytics, you'll be able to see here that there is something called a measurement ID, and we're going to need this measurement ID to jump into Google Tag Manager to set up the Google Analytics account. So just copy this over, and once you are in your Google Tag Manager account that you have hopefully set up, then all you need to do is jump over and set up a new tag. So the way that Google Tag Manager works is actually quite similar to Zapier. You have triggers and you have tags. So tags are probably what we would refer to as actions in the Zapier world. But again, the concept is very similar. Whenever a certain event happens, we want a certain action to be taken. So what you'd want to do, first of all, is to set up the Google Analytics 4 configuration. And then as soon as you select GA4, it will ask you for the measurement ID that you've hopefully copy and pasted over from Google Analytics. So once that is done, now what we want to do is we want to define the triggers, and that is when do we want Google Analytics to fire up. So by default, they're going to have one trigger set up in there, which is all pages. And basically what that means is that whenever a page on your website is loaded, you want Google Analytics to fire. Now another tag that might be useful to set up is to track all sorts of clicks on your website. So if you want to add that, all you need to do is just click on the trigger button, and then in the top right corner you'll see the plus button. Just click on that, and then in here you can configure your trigger. So what I want to set up here is tracking all clicks. So the way it works is you can then just click into the setup tool and then scroll through all the different trigger types that are available to you. So you can see that there's a long list of things that you can do. For example, just triggering page views as we just did, but then you also have link clicks, element clicks, scroll depth. So if you want to measure how far someone gets into your site, you can use that tool. But what I'm going to be using for now is just link clicks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save that. And once that is saved, then what you can do is you can publish that tag, and then whenever someone visits your website or clicks a link on your website, that will be tracked from inside of Google Analytics. Now, a few other things that you can do with Google Tag Manager that are quite handy is you can also create what's called events. So sometimes you want to see how often certain people take certain actions on your website. For example, visiting a particular page, clicking a button, or scrolling to a certain point in a website. So what you can do is you can actually send that information as an event or as a conversion to Google Analytics, and then it will give you a nice overview of how often people are taking those actions on your website. So this might be very useful if you want to track things like how many freelancers were contacted, how many people click on the portfolio links inside of someone's profile page, or how many people have posted a job to the job board. I personally track this information and then use the information that gets added in here to populate the dashboard that I created for freelancers. So if in the future you want to build your own custom analytics dashboard, then you can actually use this data that gets sent to Google Analytics to then send that data to your custom analytics dashboard inside of Webflow. So if you want to track a specific event, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to set up a tag, which is a GA4 event. So the way you do it is similar like with the Google Analytics configuration, is you just jump in here and you create your tag. So there is a field for GA4 events, just click into that. And then what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you add it to the right Google Analytics account. And then what you want to do is you want to give your event a name. So in my case, if I want to track someone who visited my freelancer sign up page, then what I'll do is just give it that name. And then from there, what we want to do is we want to define when we want that event to trigger. So again, just jump into the trigger. And now you can see at the moment we only have 2 of these events set up, the all clicks and all pages. But we don't want this event to fire on all pages or on all clicks. We only want it to fire when a website visitor visits the freelancer sign up page. So the way that we would do that is, again, we would just go ahead and configure a new trigger. We would use the page view, and then instead of using all pages, we would filter out only the pages where the URL contains the slug of the page you're trying to track. So besides tracking people's page visits, you might also want to see if someone clicks on a certain button. So a use case where that might be necessary is if you're sending someone to a different website, like someone's portfolio. So what you want to do there is you want to, again, just configure a new tag. And then all you need to do is just add the link that you're sending people to. Now this is super useful for multiple things. For example, tracking information when someone starts the sign up process and fills out an application form on the Airtable website. But also if you're running an affiliate program and you want to see how many link clicks you're generating for different pages, then that is also a way that you would track these link clicks. And then another somewhat useful way to trigger certain actions is if a user scrolls to a certain part in your website. So the way that you can do that is just, again, configure a trigger, jump down to the scroll depth, and then in there you can go ahead and select certain percentages of how far someone scrolls on a particular page, and then you can send that as an event to Google Analytics as well and track that as a conversion. And so that is a high level overview of how you can use a tool like Google Analytics to track how your website's being used, to see where people are coming from, and to hopefully build a little bit of a dashboard that you can use to make better decisions when it comes to prioritizing feature builds and attracting new customers to your site. Now, one last thing that I want to add before I leave you is that when you are using a tool like Google Analytics or other tracking tools for that matter, it is important to let your customers or your website visitors know what tools you're using and how you're using their data. So one thing that I recommend doing is going to a website called termsfeed.com and creating a privacy policy for your website. It also allows you to install things like cookie consent pop-ups and stuff like that, and it's a really useful tool, and it will make sure that you're compliant wherever you are in the world. But that's it for this video. If you want to learn more about these types of marketing tools, please let me know in the comments down below what specifically you'd want to learn about. I use a whole bunch of different tools that are technically not no-code tools, but I think they're incredibly useful when it comes to building a small little online business. So if you want to learn more about it, then please let me know and I'll make more of these in the future. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your week. See you and goodbye.